Well, now we're going to hear from Sean Hammond, Jill McCormick, and Steve Boley. Sean is the state coordinator of the Arizona Site Stewardship Program. Jill is the Fort Yuma Kashan Tribe Historic Preservation Office. And Steve is a regional coordinator of the Arizona Site Stewardship Program. Thank you for joining us, Sean, Jill, and Steve.
First thing that I wanted to say, is I can't tell you how happy I am to see this whole event take place. This started out as an idea, but without Chris and Beth, Payton, along with Wanda, I'm not sure if we'd be here today doing this and providing this to everyone out there. And now, of course, we have this great group of people, that are involved not just here in the West, but throughout the United States. So just really excited to be here today. And in our case, to let you know a little bit about the Site Steward Program in Arizona. So, for today, when you have a program that is in its fourth decade, like we are, you're going to experience some difficult times and some major challenges in a program, and that's what happened to us starting around 2015 and 16. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and how we responded to those challenges and how out of that a foundation was created to provide some much needed support and what we learned. So, and thanks again, Jill and Steve, for joining us today too. So it's been great working with you both. All right, so briefly, just go over a little history of the Site Steward Program. By the time we get to the 1980s, the theft of antiquities, the permanent damage of sites caused by looters, and for the most part an uneducated public, was robbing us of our history. And for many tribes, this was a permanent loss of areas that many considered sacred. So at the time, we had Governor Bruce Babbitt, who recognized what was taking place. And so the governor put together an advisory group. And out of this advisory group, the Site Steward Program was born. So, and if you think about it, this concept of involving members of the public in the protection of cultural resources, it goes back here, at least in the United States, it goes back to to about a little over a century ago. But really, adopting a concept like this is just such a great idea, and to involve community members with land managing and helping with decisions being made on public land and of course protecting sites. So a program was born out of that. So a bit of the growth that has taken place, the program first started out in 1988. It was formed in 1986, but we got to work around 1988. You can see some of the differences here from the column on the left to the right. Some of the things that stand out to me, of course, we started out with 50 site stewards, but now we're up to about 600 active members. But the one number that really stands out here is, since the beginning of this program, nearly 5,000 community members have become site stewards. And the way I look at that is, when you become a site steward, right, you're an advocate. So you're telling your family, your friends, right, the appropriate way to act when you're, out on land and maybe you come across the site or, some artifacts. And so, not only are you talking to family and friends, but we're also talking to the public. And you can just only imagine the tens of thousands of people that, whether it's here in Arizona and other states, how many people we have communicated with about the proper way of and the importance of protecting cultural resources. So, I think like a lot of states, our primary function, of course, is monitoring sites. So site stewards, we're going out. Stewards are assigned to specific sites. And they monitor these sites. They report if they find any damage, any vandalism. So monitoring is obviously the big focus of the program. When you get into site mitigation and stabilization and really other projects, we start getting into all the different ways that volunteers are able to help land managers. Whether it's graffiti removal at a site to helping, land managers record petroglyphs. There's such a focus on the monitoring, right? All the work that's done with monitoring sites, but I believe that, really the true efforts and impact of a site steward volunteer can be overlooked sometimes when you think about all the other things that stewards do to help land managers. Of course, education and outreach is another key piece to the program. And then Project Archaeology, this is a new program. Basically, it's about working with teachers. In this case, right now, it's 3rd through 5th grade students, and providing a curriculum with activities. Now, we'll go into a little more detail later on about Project Archaeology as well. But these are the core components of the Arizona Site Steward Program. So, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the difficult periods of the program and how we made adjustments and the correct course of action. So, up until 2015-16, there was quite a bit of stability in the Site Steward Program in particular. We had the same Site Steward coordinator from 1991 to around 2010. But then after that, we started seeing a lot more changes with the coordinator position. And it got to the point where by the time we got to 2016 into 2017, we didn't have anyone at the helm of the Site Steward Program. We had multiple people that were helping when they were able to, but we did not have that central person, and that really took a toll on the program. We were dealing with a lot of turmoil at parks at that time as well, and even the State Historic Preservation Office roles had changed a little bit. So, this just simply caused a lot of problems in the program. And at the regional level, of course, there were a lot of impacts. Jill, if you might maybe want to chime in a little bit as an RC during this period, maybe some things that stood out to you that that impact of not having that person, that go-to person at the central office, how it impacted your region and others.
Yeah, sure, Sean. Thank you. As the slide says, and Sean said, when we came through this time of having one consistent person at the helm for many, many years, and then we lost that person, we had a lot of, temporary people that took over the project or took over the program, and it kind of seemed like every time somebody new came in, we had a different direction we were going to go at that time. And it just made it very unstable for our site stewards, and they were unsure about the program. because we've had stability for so long, and then we kept, you know, every couple of years getting a new coordinator and changing the focus, and it left a lot of our site stewards feeling conflicted about whether they wanted to continue with the program or not. We lost a lot of the for a time, the interaction with a lot of our land managers. That's always a big issue, is the involvement of your land managers as well. And you need somebody consistent at that coordinator position to keep those interactions going and make sure that we're getting all of our volunteer agreements on time and able to meet the needs and requirements of our land managers. So we did have a lot of people that considered at that point there during those few years that they were going to leave the program because they didn't see a future in where the program was going to go. And as the last bullet point says, there are a lot of, you know, volunteers put a lot of time and effort and their own personal money into these programs, and they want to see that there is stable leadership at the top and that what they're doing counts, and that it makes its way back to the land managers and it's useful for them to have these volunteers out there. So, you know, reiterate again, it's very important to have that stable person at the helm to make sure we're all going in the right direction. I'll turn it back over to you, Sean.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Jill. Yeah, because you know, you certainly were going through that. That I had not been in part of the program at this point. So, but yeah, you know, the site steward coordinator position. I mean, you know, you gotta know how to manage volunteers. You know, you have to manage them like staff. Training is required. You know, discipline sometimes has to be part of that. You know, the work that you do as a coordinator. You know, you're not only managing the volunteers, but you're also managing, or working, I should say, more with the landowners. You know, you're basically an HR manager for the program. And you know, another key piece too is, you know, you have to remember that you're managing a historic program. So if you're new to a site steward program, right, I think for many of the states out there, you know, you're coming into a program that has been in existence for quite some time. And you need to make sure that you understand you're managing a historic program, that you respect the history of it and the members, because many of the members, at least here in Arizona, I can speak for Arizona only, but many of the members have been in the program for a very long time. You know, decades. We still have members that started back out in 1988. They're still part of the program. So, yeah, it's a big position, and it requires a lot of work. And when it's missing, then you're going to have problems for sure in your program. So, you know, during this time, and again, I've not come on board yet, but during this time, you know, there were a lot of grave concerns, as Jill brought up, about, you know, from active members, you know, former staff, land managers, that the program was going to be dissolved. And so a group of folks, again, you know, former staff, current members, they decided to form a foundation. And at the time, the foundation was formed because they were possibly preparing for this scenario where the state site steward program was going to be dissolved. And so, you know, they wanted to make sure that, you know, site stewards were still receiving direction, and that they were, you know, that we were still monitoring sites. So, you know, that was the initial response and reason for bringing the foundation on board, and of course for advocating for the program. You know, and one thing that really helped and has continued to help with the foundation as it's grown from its original intent just over the past 3 years, is that, the chair of the foundation works for Pueblo Grande Museum here in the Phoenix area. But the city of Phoenix itself is a land manager, so we manage a lot of sites here in the Phoenix area. And this is really a perfect example of a land managing partner stepping forward to take a leadership role, recognizing that there was a potential problem out there. And so they gave that support to one of the current staff members at Pueblo, who also was a former coordinator of the Site Steward Program. So having that support from the museum and more specifically from a land manager, really, I think, gave the foundation a good starting point to help, make sure that the Site Steward Program in general continues. So, around May of 2018, I was working, a different position there at State Parks, and I was familiar with the Site Steward Program and was a really big supporter of it. But I was asked to take on the program. One of the first things that we did was we sent out a survey, to members, because I needed to know what people were thinking and what were the issues. And of course, we sent this out at this most difficult period in the program's history. So the surveys that came back were not easy to read, but there was absolutely, it was very, it was understandable why there was a lot of frustration out there. So, and so it was not easy coming into the program. We had a lot of people who were upset. There was a lot of trust that was gone, and when I was starting to go out to meet regions, it became pretty clear that, over that 1.5 to 2 year period, many of the regions just had to really do things on their own, and without, of course, that a lot of support from the central office. So I kind of felt like it was a very fragmented program at that point, and so that obviously was a big goal, was to change that. Despite all the problems that was taking place with the program at that point, the structure of the Site Steward Program here in Arizona is, we have State Parks as the lead agency. It's where my position is housed out of. Of course, we have our land managers throughout Arizona, but we have our state's broken up into regions. At the moment right now, we have 25 regions that are scattered throughout the state. And each region has a regional coordinator. This is a volunteer who has signed up to take on a lot of extra duties. And so they oversee the day-to-day operations in that region. So they basically take on an HR role. They help train the new site steward or the new applicants that come in to become site stewards. They do the assignments. They work with the land managers to handle volunteer agreements and other required documents. So even though we were having these major problems, if it wasn't for the regional coordinators and their assistants, the program would have definitely been in trouble, because we didn't see a drop off in sites being visited or hours being reported. It's just that they did not have a lot of support, and but it definitely took its toll. It definitely took its toll. What was happening at the central office, but without our regional coordinators, the program is definitely in trouble. So, you know, I'm in the position, so at least folks have a person that they can go to. You know, I'm using that survey as a checklist of fixing problems that folks brought up. So I am starting to get out and visit more regions, interacting with volunteers. So things were getting a little better. And you know, one of the things that we resurrected, you know, I talked about how regions felt fragmented. You know, to me, the program felt fragmented and regions were on their own. Well, one of the things that I think is very useful for really for any site steward program is a newsletter. It doesn't have to be quarterly, certainly. It definitely takes a lot of work to put together a newsletter, but I definitely made that a focus my first couple months. So we got the newsletter out. It'd been basically dormant for a couple years, and you know, with the newsletter, we're providing updates, you know, from other regions. Regional coordinators, site stewards contribute articles. We give program updates. And so it's a very, very important tool for us here in Arizona. And so that was one of the first priorities, was getting that up so that we can start feeling more like one unit instead of a bunch of separate, you know, regions. So, yeah, so things are getting a little better, but a lot of work still needed to be done. And, you know, basically for me, I needed a home run. You know, we still had, you know, trust issues. I think more of anything, there was just skepticism, right? You know, how long was I going to last in the program? And I certainly was asked that quite a bit when I was visiting regions. You know, we were really behind in our recognition of site stewards, and this, you know, this was unacceptable. You know, when you have volunteers who are, you know, spending, you know, hundreds of dollars, if not more, you know, each year to volunteer for the program, putting thousands of miles on your vehicle, recognition has always got to be a priority. And so we were behind on that. The program hadn't had a really good annual conference in a couple years. And so there was a lot of training that wasn't taking place. And, you know, overall, I just felt like members needed to feel inspired again. And we had a lot of new site stewards that come on. Typically every year we get about 60, 70 applications. And so for me, I felt that, you know, I've always felt this, that annual conferences can really do so much for your program. You know, first it's about meeting other people. You know, you do a good conference for your volunteers, you know, show them that you support them. That can go really, you know, a long way. We turned to having a strong conference, an annual conference. And there was just no other choice for us but to have it at the Grand Canyon. You know, we knew it was going to be a major draw, so it would bring out a lot more people. And of course, you know, in our case, it just turned out to be just an incredible experience. The whole cultural resources department at the Grand Canyon supported us. They provided many of the actually 3/4 of the workshops. Long story short, with the Grand Canyon, it just turned out to be one of the most fantastic conferences that site stewards have told me they've ever gone to. And that really helped change the course of the program for us. But it wouldn't have been possible without the help of the foundation during this time. You know, the foundation raised a lot of money. You know, state procurement roles are really impossible in some ways. So with a foundation, they're able to handle costs and sometimes pay for things a lot quicker. So yeah, so the foundation played a really huge role not just with funding, but guidance in the program. So, basically, after all these changes, the foundation now is a more focused role, training, awards, and then, and this is my last slide, a program called Project Archaeology. So if you're not familiar with this program, definitely, go to the website. This is such a fantastic way to teach youth about cultural resource preservation. I wanted to do something similar to this before I found out about Project Archaeology, but I just didn't have the time to develop a youth program. When Project Archaeology came along, it just was a perfect fit. And the foundation has now taken that on as their main responsibility. So, again, just kind of a recap. I think some significant changes we made and using the conference and the foundation, all of that together helped us get out of a really bad period in our program.
Well, thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
And I think it's really helpful to hear the history of your program, one of the longest ones. So I really appreciate you detailing that, and gives us a good idea of other programs that might, face.